Hello friends, welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make oven-baked barbecued pork ribs. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to start making the ribs with. This is just basically going to be something we're going to use to make a rub for the ribs. The barbecue sauce we're going to make up later, so that'll be a little further through the video. Now, I have a really huge pack of ribs here. This is like probably almost 4 pounds of ribs. I'm not using all of these right now. What I'm going to use is about 2 pounds worth. So, not going to need all of this. I'm going to cut it down to size for what I do need to use it for. And we're just going to work with that. And as you can see, we have quite a few seasonings here that we're going to rub into this with a little bit of olive oil to actually give this a great flavor before we actually even add barbecue sauce to it. So, we're going to go ahead and get ready to do this. I'm using a decently large size pan, which I'm lining with aluminum foil because I don't want a lot of mess to clean up later, and this is just an easy way to get around that. And once I get my foil completely into my pan, I'm going to spray this with some non-stick cooking spray because I want to make sure that the ribs don't stick to the foil. But the great thing about this is once the ribs are done and removed from this, you just peel this foil out of here and you don't have a lot of cleanup to do. So just go ahead right at this point. I'm going to get ready to spray my pan, and we're going to preheat our oven to about 400 degrees because that's what we're going to need to cook these. These are going to be in there for a couple of hours in the oven, but you really want your oven hot before you get there. So I've cut my ribs down, and these are what I'm going to use. I'm putting them into the pan, and we're going to start putting our seasoning and stuff on top of this. So we are starting out with 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Then we're adding a half a teaspoon of onion powder. One teaspoon of paprika. Then we're adding 1 teaspoon of salt. Then we're going to add a half a teaspoon of pepper. And then finally, a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. This is going to have a little bit of a kick to it. If you don't want these hot, you don't have to use the cayenne. And then once this is done, we're going to drizzle the top of this with a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And then we're going to use our hand to rub this in because this is going to help get everything pushed into the meat and make sure that it's completely coated on top, covered from side to side. So that way when this cooks, it's going to cook the flavor into the meat. So go ahead and rub this completely. And when we're done with this, we're going to cover the pan with foil before we put it into the oven. And as I said before, it's going to go in at 400 degrees for about 2 hours. Just remember, the longer you cook this, the better it's going to be as far as getting that meat done, because you want to actually make sure that the internal temperature of the pork is right before you actually serve this. You want to make it completely cooked. However, you can put it in for an hour and a half. I actually think 2 hours is better, so that way you know that this is cooked. So we're going to go ahead, put this in our oven, and then we're going to come back and we are going to make our barbecue sauce. So I'm using Sweet Baby Ray's honey barbecue sauce, which I think has such a great flavor to it. This is just the one that I start with and then I add to it because I do love this stuff. So we're using at least a half a cup of Sweet Baby Ray's. So squeeze it out into a large enough bowl that you can mix into. And then after we get that in, we're going to add at least 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Then to this, we're adding 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Okay, to this, you are adding 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Then we're going to add into this a half a teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper. which the pepper is going to spice this up a bit. So go ahead and mix this around in your bowl. You want to make sure that everything is incorporated together into the original barbecue sauce, and make sure that it's really smooth and easy to use. So we're just going to make sure everything is gotten from the bottom, the sides of the bowl, and mixed completely through. And when we're done with this, we're going to set it aside until the ribs come out of the oven. So like I said, the ribs are going to be in the oven for at least 2 hours before we need this. So if you have to, put a lid on it and put it to the side. So at the 2-hour marker, our ribs are back, and this is what they look like. And as you can see, they're cooked up really well. So what we want to do is take our barbecue sauce and just spread it completely over the whole top of this. And you want to make sure that all of it's coated from side to side all the way around. And if it's dripping off, that's perfectly fine. It'll just go up underneath of it and still cook in from the bottom. Because once we get this barbecue sauce on here, we're going to put these ribs back into the oven, but turn the oven up to about 450 degrees for about 10 minutes for this to cook. So since your oven should still be hot from where these were in before, just crank it up to 450, and like I said, 10 minutes. And then in the last maybe like 3 minutes or so here, we're going to go ahead and turn this onto your broiler and let the broiler be on and let it caramelize the actual barbecue sauce and everything and brown and crisp up the edges of this. So that way when it comes out, everything looks a lot like it's been grilled over a flame or whatever. So once this is done, like I said, put it back into the oven again at 450, which is going to be for about 10 minutes. And then, like I said, use the broiler after that, and it'll come back looking something like this. And as you can see, this is cooked really well. The barbecue is more than enough to coat this thing, and it's actually adhered to the meat really well. So it's going to have such a great taste when you go to eat it, because there's plenty of barbecue on top of the whole set of ribs here. So, and this is what mine looked like when I put it on a plate. And I have to say, this had the best taste, and I think that if you try this, you'll probably like it as much as I do. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out my cookbooks, which are available in bookstores worldwide. The first is about everyday cooking. The second is all about baking. Have a great day.